Hi, I'm Sam Sells, and welcome to my podcast, Clean Money. I like to say investing matters, and my show is to talk with everyday folks that are not only creating great success, but making an impact in society and improving the lives of others. That is my mission, and I want to share my stories and others with you. Welcome to Clean Money. Thank you for joining us today for another great episode of Clean Money, where we talk about making a difference in the world through our investments of time and resources. My guest today is Chris Larsen, who is pretty remarkable. Chris, you've done some pretty amazing things. I love your philosophies already about freedom and the things that you care about, and just as you listen, I want you to think about what Chris is talking about, because what he's showing is that once you become successful, you can start thinking about and solving very complex problems that you can't do when you're just trying to make it from paycheck to paycheck, or how am I going to retire? Once those problems are solved, you're like, okay, now what's next? So to share a little bit about who Chris Larsen is, he's the founder and principal of Next Level Income. Chris has been investing in and managing real estate for over 20 years. While still a college student, he bought his first rental property at age 21. That was a long time ago for me.
Come on. It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago for sure. From there, Chris expanded into development, private lending, buying distressed debt, as well as commercial offices, and ultimately syndicating commercial properties. He began syndicating deals in 2016 and has been actively involved in over $1 billion of real estate acquisition. That's a lot. Chris is passionate about helping investors become financially independent. Welcome to the show, Chris. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Sam. No, I'm excited. And I thought you invited me on to talk about how we launder money through our car wash with the clean money. And it turns out that that's not what we're going to talk about for all you Breaking Bad fanatics out there.
Yeah. Car washes, by the way, are amazing investments.
They are. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. John, my goodness, they can make a lot of cash.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about where you got started a long time ago, young Chris. Why real estate?
Yeah.
How did it all begin?
Yeah, Sam. So thank you so much for the intro. And I'll tell you guys how to, we'll kind of cover a little bit of my story here. I'll tell you how to get my full story in my book here and get a free copy. But yeah, I started at 21. And really when I was in college, Sam, all I wanted to do was race my bicycle, race road bikes, and ultimately go pro. And I was studying biomechanical engineering, but I knew like 2 weeks in that this wasn't really a good fit for me. And I like physiology. I got the degree because I thought that it made sense to get a degree that was potentially more useful. But what I found along the way, even though that wasn't a good fit for me, is that it taught me to think in a certain way. We were talking about frameworks before the show, and assumptions, and how to challenge your own assumptions. And I think it's something that, the world, everybody in the world can really benefit from. I mean, you look at the way COVID was handled and people fall into different camps, and it's like, well, what if we have a conversation and we challenge the original assumptions and we learn from each other, and then we go back to try to solve the problem. And I learned a lot, but I also learned that I didn't want to be an engineer. And I learned that I could do more with my life than race bicycles. And that revelation, if you will, came the year after my best friend passed away. I was in between my freshman and sophomore years of college. It was June 21st, 1997. Remember like it was yesterday. My best friend was 18. His name was also Chris. I was a year older than him. He had a massive brain hemorrhage and died.
Wow.
Came back to school. It was devastating. And but I came back to school, and my therapy was my bike. And I poured my heart and soul into riding my bike. I was very successful. I basically got to the level where you could be a pro. My team went pro, but I'd quit right before that happened, because I said, you know what, there's more to life than doing this. And I think we're very fortunate in America. I mean, if you just look at the percentage of people in the world that get to work out as a choice to stay, for recreation or for fun, it's a very, very small percentage of the population. I made this pact. I made this pledge to make the most out of my life, to make the most out of the life that I was given and the life that my friend Chris didn't have anymore. And as part of that, as I, kind of going with these frameworks, I said, wait a minute, I need money. Like, you need money, you need financial wherewithal to take advantage of the opportunities that life brings you, whether that's taking advantage of an opportunity to travel, like to the Grand Canyon that's in this picture behind me here,
Awesome.
where I spent 3 weeks with some friends a few years ago, whether it's to buy, or pay for the best healthcare, as we were talking about before the show, Sam, whether it's sending your child to a school that they need, like my older son goes, to help him academically with some of the challenges he's faced. Like, all these things take money. And I read over 250 books on finance, on the stock market, on real estate. And I ultimately settled on real estate because it was a good fit for me. I like things that are predictable. I think that really, from investing and also from a career perspective, we have it kind of reversed. We think, hey, take risk early in life, and if you fail, you can kind of rebuild from there. And my philosophy was, don't manage risk, choose a very predictable path to success. And if you can achieve that path, or if you can achieve that success in a predictable time period. So let's say you say, hey, I'm going to become financially independent in 15 years. Maybe it takes 10, maybe it takes 20 years, but fairly predictable. Well, once you're financially independent, you can take as much risk as you want. So that was the path that I set out on. Started with buying a single townhome that we'd call it a house hack today.
Yeah.
And today we own over 3,000 units. We own also a dozen storage facilities. We just closed on 3 more car washes. I own a car wash here right down the road in Asheville, as I alluded to. And we also have 10 mobile home parks as well. So I know we have a few things in common there.
Yeah.
And, now we focus on, not only providing these investment opportunities for investors in our network, but also education. That's really what Next Level Income is about, is providing the education and opportunities for others to achieve financial independence.
That's great. The discussion we didn't have before, but I'm sure we could talk about for a long time, is the educational policy in the United States.
Yeah.
How it sets us up to be blue collar workers, and never go beyond that. And I look at the Empire State Building, which has been syndicated for well over 100 years. 100 years ago, people were syndicating and buying that building, right? It's not, it's not new. None of this stuff is new. It's just not taught. And why? Because we need people turning wrenches, and the war machine needs to get, taken care of, and everything else. And so if you're okay with that, great. We need engineers engineering. We need people doing those things. But if it's not okay and you want freedom, you have to go somewhere else for your education.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that journey from you going from being a doer into an educator and a doer at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what you just said, Sam, is so powerful. And my mother was a public school teacher. My grandmother before her was a public school teacher. I went to public schools. And actually, my mother met my father passed away when I was 5. My mother met my stepfather, who was also a public school teacher. So I really, not only was I part of that system, but, I had parents that were part of that system, grandparents that were part of that system. My grandfather, my mother's side, was actually an engineer. And my grandparents on my father's side were dairy farmers. So if you kind of look at that blue collar mentality, but also my grandparents met at the University of Maryland. So my grandfather was in the Navy, went to college through the benefit that he got from being in the military at the time with GI Bill. And so all that is influenced and kind of weaves into what you said. But if you look at today, if we fast forward to today, the world is vastly different. It made a lot of sense to go to college back then. It made a lot of sense to, go into STEM degrees. And I think it still does in a lot of ways. But really, if you look at the problems that the world faces, these problems are solved and will continue to be solved, in my opinion, by entrepreneurs. And that's why I'm so passionate about financial independence, because if you look at people like Bill Gates, if you look at people like Mark Zuckerberg, and I mean, the list goes on and on, a lot of these people came from pretty well-off backgrounds. So it gave them the freedom and flexibility to drop out of college if they wanted to explore other options, because they didn't have to have their head down focused on becoming an engineer or becoming, a plumber or whatever it might be. So they had the ability to explore other opportunities. And really what they did was they solved bigger problems that were out there. And that's what I truly believe is going to help the world do these things. The issue we have is we kind of have this headwind in our system, which is, oh, go to college, get a good job. This is what you're supposed to do. But if you actually look at the economics of it, it doesn't make the most sense in most circumstances to go to college for most people. There's a ROI, and this is really where kind of there's a divergence. So if you go to my website, nextlevelincome.com/kids, we have a chapter in a children's book that I helped co-author called No Problem Parenting. And I talk about 5 steps to help your children be money pros. And what I talk about in that final step is to teach your children the true cost and value of college. And what I really talk about is your responsibility as a parent, in my opinion, is to, 1, understand what an ROI is, the return on investment, and 2, be able to teach your children what the return on investment of a college education is. And if you can figure that out, if you understand what the cost of capital is, which I know this to a lot of people listening, they understand these concepts, but a lot of people's eyes glaze over and they don't understand these, which means, again, going back to what being an engineer or learning how to be an engineer taught me, if you don't understand the assumptions, then it doesn't matter how you solve the problem, even if you're doing it the right way, you're going to come up with a bad solution. I think we're coming up with bad solutions with the system that we have today's day and age for a lot of people. And it's keeping them in areas kind of held down, whereas they could flourish and thrive and, become even more.
I love that you brought out the assumptions, right? So many statements are made as if they are true, but they're all based on assumptions, right? You could say, well, science proved this. And you're like, well, what were the assumptions that went into that analysis? What was the rate of error of that analysis? What was it built on? Was it built on something else that was a 90% chance of being true? And then, you can go down this rabbit hole and determine, if it's not a law, an immutable law of the universe, then there's probably error in there, but you got to look at the assumptions. And so here we are, we back out and, we grow up as we're young, we have these gigantic ideas. My 5-year-old wants to go to Mars. Like, he's always wanted to live on Mars. I'm like, kid, you're 5. Yeah. Wonderful. I'm not gonna tell you can't go live on Mars, because now I guess that's something that could happen in his lifetime. But you go to school and the first thing they teach you is that you're dumb and you need to fit into this little tiny mechanism of being taught, and we need to force you back into some kind of mold. But you just cited all these people who were able to trump the mold and walk away because they had that underpinning. So now you're teaching people how to become free, and then once they're free, go and do something incredible. Right?
Yes. And that's really like when I coach my coaching clients, and I can also share with your audience how to get my coaching framework in our course that we have on our website as well. But the first thing we do, and what my most successful coaching clients do, is they put together a 3-year vision. Because a lot of people just say, I want to escape my job. I want to retire. I want to get out of it. But really, that's not where true fulfillment comes from. What we want is we want to create, we want to produce, we want to solve problems. That's where a lot of fulfillment comes from. Sometimes we need a break from all of the things that we've done to focus on our health, to get back into a state of optimal health, to focus on our family, to focus on our marriages, right? Like, all these things are very important. And, if you've been working and doing something you don't want to do, maybe you have to focus on that before you go and solve, those big problems and really do what you're meant to do. But the first step is, okay, how do you get your financial house in order? And after my engineering degree, I went and got an MBA in portfolio management. So I learned how institutions manage money. And what I learned was, really the financial world, it's a lot like the healthcare space. It's a lot like the education space. We've made these assumptions that in a lot of cases aren't correct.
Right.
or they're driven by, the financial motives of the industry, and that doesn't necessarily best suit the individuals that they're quote unquote serving. So, if you go to a doctor and well, let's say you go to a surgeon. I work with surgeons for almost 18 years, okay, or almost 20 years, 18 years. And if you go to a surgeon, they're trained to operate. So if you said, mm-hmm. Hey, doctor, like I want to lose weight so I don't have to have surgery, they're probably, most surgeons are going to say, well, that's not really what I do. I'm here to operate on you and perform surgery. And that's good because we have the best surgeons in the world by and large. But you have to remember kind of how the system is structured. So if you go to a financial advisor that says, oh, I don't deal in quote unquote alternatives like real estate, like gold, like life insurance, these things that, were around, long before, as you mentioned, long before kind of the financial world that we have today. You may have a path set up for you. And I'm not saying financial advisors aren't worth it. We just did a show and talked about the value of a financial advisor or a financial coach. But, if you go to somebody that understands these, and is, or at least able to understand the direction, then you can probably, find some better choices. And, the foundation of kind of what we teach, Sam, is how can you develop enough passive income to cover your expenses? Because if you can't touch your 401k without penalties till you're 59 and a half, then what if you want to be financially independent? Like I was and my Matt Four, who works with us, we were both in our mid 30s, so the system's not really set up to help with that. So you gotta look elsewhere.
You have to, because I think the 401k is, got to be one of the biggest scams in the world. It's a little harsh to say that, but you're like, I'm just going to give my money over to a random person somewhere who's going to invest it in crappy stocks. And then I get whatever I get. I get matching from my employer, but I would rather they just pay me more, and I can go spend that money, invest it how I want to. Anyway, at least now you have self-directed IRAs, so you can use it to invest in real estate and other things that makes way better return typically than stocks would. But, backing up, you talked about true fulfillment. I'll tell you a little secret. So I spent over a decade doing international health, working with foreign militaries, foreign government, trying to help them build healthcare systems. Loved it. Still love it. Got my master's degree in health policy and global health. I've a lot of education, a lot of experience, real world experience doing that. Now, to go do international health, you need to either work for a government agency or you need a ton of capital. Okay. Because it's expensive, right? A lot of the plane tickets for me were like 10 grand or so just to go to Chad, or to, Senegal or wherever I was going. And so it's like, how do I go and have the impact that I want to have but do it outside of the framework that the government puts us in, so that I can teach the incentive process and how to align the incentives of medical professionals around the globe so that they continue to want to become better and better and encourage great health outcomes for their countries. Right. And so it's not just for health folks, but also for their government leaders. How do you align the incentives so that they want their population to have better health? So much so that they will enact policies to help. It doesn't do that because, hey, I'm an American and you should do this because it's awesome and you're going to love it. No, that doesn't. They're like, yeah, I love you. Thank you. Bye. And so to get there, I had to build a system that I knew that would generate a ton of wealth for myself, my family, that we could then use that to go and do the things that we want to do to have a greater impact. And I love that you bring that up, because as kids, we think, I want to do this or I want to do that, but we're restricted. Oklahoma public school. I didn't, think I could go do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But you just have to find the right mentor or coach or somebody. Now, one question before another question I have for you that just listening to you has popped up in my mind, but um, tell us if you can, I know you've had a lot of students. Tell us a success story of somebody that you've been able to coach and help them leave that world behind and go and be, chase fulfillment.
Yeah. So we got a few, and I want to do some 401k math for the audience here in a minute. But actually my college roommate, he learned what we were doing. He reached out several years ago and said, "Hey, Chris, I'm interested um, in investing in some of these real estate syndications that you do." We talked about the passive income side, and he did well. He worked for Google. He was an engineer with Google, so a really sharp guy, smarter than me. And he called me. I guess this was over a year ago now. It was about a year and a half ago, and he said, "Hey, can you talk?" I said, "Yeah. What's up?" And I called him, and he said, "Hey, I want to tell you something." He said, "Gone through the math. I even talked to a financial advisor, kind of double check everything, and I'm gonna leave my job." He was doing very well, and I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I just wanted to say thank you because it's because of the passive income that we have coming in that I was able to leave my job at." And he was let's say 42 at the time. And he said, "Now I can consult a little bit if I want to, but I can spend more time with my kids. I can volunteer, and I can really do things that matter to me." And that's just one story. And I have multiple other stories and kind of different pathways as well of coaching clients that went down the path of, say, short-term rentals and built a business to help create financial independence for them. I have stories of coaching clients that created an inactive real estate investment business that their wife is able to, or their spouse, I should say, is able to manage, and they were able to leave their job and create more freedom and more more opportunity for a lot of different things. But again, it's not really the vehicle, whether it's a passive real estate investment, whether it's an active real estate investment. The idea is, do you have a plan to create passive income, and then figure out something that fits in your lifestyle in the framework that you have, whether you want to continue in your job or leave your job, or create a partnership with your spouse that you can do that. Then you can create the life that you truly want to live.
I never understood before I started, and really the first couple of years of working in commercial real estate, that different types of real estate lead to a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Great point. Yeah. Great point.
And so I developed a framework, and I've been teaching people, like, look, when I started, I had no idea what land investment was. I'd actually done a land investment deal, was making money, but I didn't know what it was as a track, right? It's almost like you can do that as a track.
Yeah.
You can do short-term rentals as a track. There's ways to be super successful. There's ways to fall flat on your face and lose everything, just like with everything else, right? There's a track for multifamily, syndicating, all these different things that you can do. They all lead to different types of lifestyles and so forth. And so understanding, what the different paths are, and then figuring out one that aligns, like you just said, Chris, to who you are, what you want to accomplish, how you like to think, how you like to move. All that, you can align something really well with somebody, and not spend, like I did, years trying to figure out, like, what's the thing that I want to do? Well, I don't know all the things, and I don't know, just trying to find somebody who teaches us, like, how to do this or how to do that or what it is. Yeah. Anyhow. So
yeah, that's a great point.
Thank you for doing that. There's not a lot of people like yourself out there teaching people, this is probably what's going to fit you the best. Take a look. If it's right, I'll help you be successful at that thing. Because over time you become a true investor. You're like, oh, to make it in SDRs, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and that's how I'm going to make it. And you're going to be super successful right away because and you're going to find the right people to help you avoid the mistakes.
Exactly.
And
yeah, build a plan, figure out the right fit, have the accountability and somebody that can help you, like you said, Sam, avoid the mistakes and really kind of take that shortcut. And that's why we wrote the book. That's why the podcast is to help people learn these lessons and figure out what is the best path for them.
Yeah. So let's do some 401k math.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I had it written down here. So Yeah, this might blow your mind if you haven't heard this before. And it kind of, when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh. So I have a minor in math, right? Like I feel like I'm a pretty smart guy. I can do math. I can use my financial calculator. But again, if you don't challenge your assumptions and you don't actually look into it, you might never change the way you're thinking and your actions. So if you invest for 20 years at 10%, okay, and you either choose to put that money in a 401k and avoid paying tax, and then in 20 years you pay, let's say, a 25% tax rate on the money you take out, or you choose to pay a 25% tax rate today and then not have to take money out in the future. What scenario, if you're listening, is going to give you more money? Now, a lot of people typically hear that and say, oh, it's the first scenario. If you don't pay tax today, because your money's going to grow compounded, it's not going to be affected by tax. So you're going to have more money in the future. You are going to have more money in the future, but you're going to pay that much more tax in the future. So the point is, it's the exact same amount of money before or after tax. So the part of the equation, and go back and listen to that, you're going to have the same amount of money after tax if you don't pay tax today and put money in a 401k, but pay the same tax rate in the future as you would today, versus paying the tax today, getting the same growth rate, and then not paying tax in the future. And the point is, it's the tax rate that matters. So putting your money in a 401k is a bet that you're going to pay less in taxes in the future. So that means you either think the government is going to lower their taxes, which is mathematically impossible. We have to raise taxes to pay for all the obligations that we have in this country. Mm-hmm. Or you say, well, tax rates are going to go up, but Chris, I'm going to make so little money in the future. I'm going to have so little money in the future that I'm not going to have to worry about paying those taxes. So either you have a scarcity mindset versus an abundant mindset, or essentially you're going to be poor. You're going to run out of money, or you think the tax rates are going down. And personally, I don't like either of those options. So I'm not a huge fan of 401ks for that reason. I would say that, there's a lot of people, if you got a match through an employer, maybe you can look at that and look at the math. I mean, I took a match for a long time. And then when COVID hit and the government allowed me to take money out without penalty, I took it with that. So, there's kind of ways around that. But again, go back and listen to that segment, and then, decide, if you're one of those people that I've talked to a lot of these people over the years, they say, Chris, I'd like to put $50,000, I'd like to put $100,000 into syndication or real estate investment this year or over the next couple of years, but I just don't have the money. Those same people are putting that much or sometimes more into qualified retirement plans, but they don't realize that they're kind of painting themselves into a corner.
Absolutely. And if you want to throw a big wrench into that whole thing, you could say, well, I'm a real estate investor full time, so I pay zero taxes.
Bingo. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. We just had Thomas Castelli on our podcast here that aired April 18th, I believe it was, on tax day. I think we had a special with him that came out here on April 18th, and you can go back and listen to some of the tips that Thomas talks about and how you can qualify for that, even if you're not doing this full time. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's using the law that was written for us. I mean, the law is written to not pay taxes. The vast majority of the law is, here's how you don't pay taxes.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, love it. So why don't we follow the law? Do your American duty to not pay taxes. That's the whole point. But educational system is geared to help people become strong taxpayers, because we need a law, a strong tax base.
Yeah, and you hear, well, and I think, the thing we hear a lot, Sam, is, and a lot of people are going to be nodding their heads when they hear this is, oh, you got to pay your fair share. Elon Musk doesn't pay his fair share. Warren Buffett doesn't pay his fair share. Jeff Bezos. It's like, well, their business pays a lot of taxes. They create a lot of wealth. If you had the opportunity to create a business and jobs and pay corporate tax and employment taxes and have employees that are making a lot of money and paying taxes, would you rather that scenario, or would you rather somebody just doesn't pay any taxes but doesn't create any of that stuff, or pays taxes and doesn't have the ability to do that? I think the answer is the government wants that the former scenario, because that's how the tax code is written, because they want to grow the wealth in the country. And if we listen to politicians, a lot of times we forget, the way these incentives were set up to do this. But I personally think that, if you're listening, I would trust you with your money to do with it what you will, more than I would trust somebody that we voted into office to choose, hey, I'm going to take your money and do with it what I want to do. And maybe they're trying to pay back, somebody that's made a political contribution or do that. And, there are good things that the country does with tax dollars.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of infrastructure and things that are set up. I'm not saying we shouldn't pay any tax, but I certainly believe that, you should pay, your legal amount, and then, keep as much as you can legally, which is one of the things we teach in our course, so that you can go and create more wealth, or you can do things like Sam, like you were talking about, go and put your money to work in areas that you truly believe in.
Absolutely. The whole concept of clean money is that we can invest in a way that aligns with our core values and use our money to further the things that we are passionate about. Talked to an investor who recently he really, he teaches dance. He's loved to teach dance for years and years. He wants to open some dance studios, but is getting older. And he's like, so how do I do this? Like, well, you can buy strip centers through commercial real estate that will create wealth for you. And you can designate one of those as a dance studio. And his point was that he wants to do dance studios for those who can't afford to go to a normal dance studio. And so, great, you can do that, but you're going to have income. And if you're going to want to give back, you need something to give.
Love
right?
that. Oh my gosh, what a great point. If you want to give back, you have to have something to give. What a great statement.
If all you have is a sandwich and you give your sandwich away, now what? You don't have a sandwich and they just ate your sandwich and now they got nothing either. So you're both nothing, right?
Hungry.
You're both hungry. And so the thing that I know you're passionate about, I'm passionate about, is making a difference in this world by helping people make a difference in their own lives. And then, of course, you and I both have a shared passion for affordable housing and creating clean, safe places for people to live. One last topic. We've talked about a lot of different things. Another thing that I love, but people don't know about, is that family banking idea. Can you just touch on that real briefly, and how powerful that is in changing your family's fortunes and how you do things?
Yes. And that's a big topic. And we actually have a section on our website at nextlevelincome.com. If you click on the banking link, we have a white paper and a whole webinar on there that you can access for free. But really, if you think about the concept as a whole, it's based upon specific life insurance contracts. I know a lot of people hear life insurance and they'll turn off, and that's fine. I would encourage you to kind of, keep an open mind, because it's a lot like real estate. If you look at life insurance, you build equity over time. You can take that money out tax-free. There's phenomenal tax benefits. But most importantly, this goes back to the assumption of buy term, invest the difference. That is built on the same broken math and logic as 401ks, which is, hey, I'm going to accumulate. It's called accumulation theory. I'm going to accumulate a specific amount of money, and I'm going to spend it. And I'm going to hope that I die before my money runs out. And if you kind of cringe a little bit when I say that, then maybe this strategy that we call the investment optimizer, or you've heard it called family banking. Nelson Nash coined the term, like becoming your own banker. That might be a strategy for you to look into, because you can create tax-free retirement income in a predictable, actually guaranteed fashion. So you actually get a guaranteed amount of return inside of those policies, which you're not going to see that word guaranteed thrown around a lot in the real estate or stock market space.
No, you shouldn't.
And yeah, and
anybody says guaranteed, you just need to run away.
Yeah, you're probably getting a call from, or knock on the door from the SEC. Yeah. But then the other cool thing is that, I have a very personal relationship with this after my father died when I was 5. And then also my best friend's wife died when she was 40. I've seen some really powerful stories come out of this. But most importantly is, if you want to create generational wealth, Real estate's a phenomenal way to do it. Life insurance is another phenomenal tool. And I would call it a tool, not an investment. So yeah, again, you can learn more about that in our banking area. And what we really teach, Sam, is we teach how to blend real estate investing. So if you're listening to this show, this is probably kind of geared towards you. We teach real estate investing and how to blend the strategy into that and really supercharge your investments. So it's, I started off using it as kind of an independent strategy. My agent really didn't teach me how to use it. So now we've built the whole framework around that, so you can blend it in with your investing strategy and really create some really phenomenal benefits for you and your family.
I have to say, Chris, thank you for being one of those guys who went out there and figured it out and then are teaching others. When I started my journey into commercial real estate and into all these different avenues, I'd done single family homes, fix and flips, because that's what, it seems accessible, right?
Yeah.
If I'd have known this other stuff is easier and far, far more powerful, I would have started in commercial real estate 20 years ago, right? Yeah. When I started in residential. The thing is like, even when I started 5 years ago, it was hard to find good educators, more broad strokes, and then people who can drill down and help you do that. So I didn't find a coach. It took me years of ping ponging around, trying different asset classes and different stuff before I really settled and understood, like, okay, this, and now I know how to be successful, and now I know how to do debt right, and now I know how to do equity correctly, and now we have institutional partners and so forth and so on. And my mind has just been blown with some of the things that I've learned in the process. And it's just, if I could go back in time and take that shortcut and avoided all the zigzags and back and forth, holy moly, I would do that in a flash. So
I like that, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone who's listening to this, please take some time and look up Chris Larsen and your website. If you could just repeat that.
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. So nextlevelincome.com. You can get a free copy of our book. Click on the book link. If you put your address in, we'll even send you a free copy for that. You could check out our course under the resources section. And we talk about how to make more money, keep more of your hard-earned dollars, and ultimately develop a plan to grow your money through investments, doing things like Sam teaches on this show. And then we also have our podcast, which you can listen to. You can subscribe, and we're going to have Sam on an upcoming episode here soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. Where else can our audience find you?
Yeah, we're also all over social media. And again, there's links at the bottom of our website to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. My team's got stuff going out there every day.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we live in an incredible time of history where we can go and learn how to do things that have been like held secret, by these ultra wealthy people that we never would have learned had we grown up through the public school system 100 years ago. We just never would have. You wouldn't have, I wouldn't have. But now, like the next generation, people coming up, they can just find somebody who's doing what we do and learn and grow and follow in the steps of the Rockefellers and the many, many others who created massive wealth and kept it in their families until,
Absolutely.
The bad nephew blows it all on whatever.
That's the Vanderbilts. The Rockefellers are done okay, but the Vanderbilts, they made some mistakes along the way.
Yeah, that's okay. It's just how to get back on track. Right. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. What a great episode. I really enjoyed speaking with you, Chris. Anything else you want to share with us before we hop off?
Just Sam, thank you so much. If you're listening today, congratulations. You're definitely in the right spot to learn more, change your mindset, and take action today. Once you figure out your plan, take massive action, move forward towards your financial independence.
Love it. Thank you, Chris. And thanks for joining the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Clean Money, where we talk about sustainable investing that improves society. We are passionate about creating great investment returns to investors who want to use their money to make a positive social impact in the world. If you enjoyed the episode, we'd appreciate a 5-star review. And if you are interested in making your investing matter, please connect with us at wildmountaincapital.com, or you can find me, Samuel Sells, on LinkedIn on Twitter at Sells_Samuel, on Instagram at Clean Money Sam, or on Facebook. And finally, make your investing matter.